In 1858, the Speck brothers are transporting slaves in Texas when they encounter Dr. King Schultz, a unique and cool dentist with a giant tooth on his carriage roof. Schultz seeks out a slave named Django, who may know about the Brittle brothers. When the Speck brothers threaten them, Django shoots them, and Django collects their belongings. Schultz sets the slaves free and offers them a choice to help or escape. Django and Schultz enter a racist Texas town where they encounter trouble and drink in a bar. Schultz reveals he is a bounty hunter, not a dentist. Schultz needs Django's help to find some outlaws and offers him an agreement where they are equal partners. If Django declines, Schultz will use slavery against him. Django agrees to help and is promised his freedom and $75 after the job. The sheriff threatens them, but Schultz shoots him. The marshal arrives, and Schultz shows the papers calling for the dead outlaw sheriff. They camp for the night, and Django plans to find his wife once he's free. Schultz is surprised that slaves marry, which is an unusual idea to him. Django tells him how he ran away with his wife and was separated from her and sold. They arrive in Tennessee and get Django new clothes before heading to plantations to find the outlaws. Schultz tells Django to stay in character and play the valet. They arrive at a plantation where they are met with hostility from Bennett, who doesn't allow Django to ride the horse. Schultz says he wants to buy one of Bennett's slave girls, and despite initial contempt, Bennett agrees when he hears the price. Django is shown around and learns that the Brittle brothers are there under the name Schaffer. He intervenes when he sees them punishing a young girl and kills them both. Schultz shoots the final brother from a distance. They leave with the bodies, but Bennett and his clan pursue them to kill them. They complain about their masks with eye holes and frustrate a man named Willard, but Bennett makes them wear them. The clan surrounds the carriage, but Schultz and Django are far away. Schultz shoots the tooth, causing an explosion that scares off the clan. Django is given a gun to capture Bennett, and Django agrees to stay with Schultz to find his wife. They travel and kill bad guys before going to Greenville after the season ends. Schultz discovers that Broomhilda is owned by Calvin Candy. Django suggests buying her, but Schultz thinks it won't work. He plans for Django to pose as a Mandingo fighting expert to get close to Candy. Django is reluctant to play a black slave, but they go to the Cleopatra Club to meet Candy. They watch a Mandingo fight, and Django impresses Candy by showing interest in fighters he isn't selling. Calvin agrees to discuss the sale when they offer a high price, and they travel to Candyland. Django is still treated poorly despite being a free man and guest of Calvin's. Django pulls a man off his horse, causing everyone to draw their weapons, but Calvin stops them. Schultz advises Django to control his aggression and play the game to find Broomhilda. They come across a runaway man, and Calvin convinces him to come down from the tree. Calvin expects 5 fights from a Mandingo he bought for $500, but Schultz questions how he'll make money if the Mandingo can't fight. Django pretends they won't buy the Mandingo, and the dogs are released on him. At Candyland, Stephen questions Django's presence, but Calvin explains that Django is a guest. Schultz asks for Broomhilda to be sent to his room that evening. Calvin tells Schultz that Broomhilda is in the hot box for trying to run away. He suggests taking her out for Schultz's enjoyment. They bring her to Schultz's room that night, and he assures her they are there to rescue her. Broomhilda faints during dinner, and Calvin warns the doctor not to fall in love with a black woman. Laura Lee implies that Broomhilda is interested in Django, which Stephen confronts her about, but she denies it. The squad strikes a deal for a Mandingo, but Schultz stalls on signing the paperwork. Stephen suggests showing Broomhilda's scars, but Laura Lee stops them. Stephen confronts Broomhilda again and interrupts when Schultz offers to buy her. Stephen speaks to Calvin alone and tells him they're there to rescue Broomhilda. Calvin realizes he's being played and tells Laura Lee to leave when Schultz brings up the sale again. Calvin tells a story about a slave named Ben and explains that slaves have a submissive part of their brains. Calvin Candy uses a skull to explain why slaves don't kill their masters, saying it's because of their submissive brains. He threatens Django, causing a confrontation that leads to an ambush. Calvin demands $12,000 for Broomhilda's freedom, and Schultz pays it. After signing the receipt and Broomhilda's freedom papers, they bid Candy farewell. After killing Calvin, Django fights off more attackers before being surrounded by others with guns pointed at him. Steven stops the shooting and reveals he has Broomhilda at gunpoint. He demands Django surrender, but she tells him to let her go. Django eventually gives in and walks out with his hands up, surrounded by his captors. Django is tied up and awakened by Billy, who's stopped by Steven before he burns off Django's genitals. Lara Lee plans to give Django away, and he's taken to the mines. Django lies to Tarantino, convincing him to go back to Candyland to catch bandits with bounties. Django kills the group and returns to Candyland with dynamite to finish the job. Django kills the tracker and finds Schultz's dead body before saving Broomhilda and killing Billy. Django tells the slaves to leave, but shoots Steven in the kneecap. He lights the dynamite and walks away from Candyland as it explodes. Django and Broomhilda reunite and set off in search of better days. The 2012 movie starred Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, and Leonardo DiCaprio. Share your thoughts on what you would do to save your significant other with the hashtag #CinemaRecap in the comments and subscribe.